On Tuesday, Fed Chair Kevin Warsh sat down for his first congressional testimony since taking over from Jerome Powell back in May. And the timing was almost funny. That same morning, June CPI came in soft, an unexpected 0.4% monthly drop. Good news for inflation on paper. Warsh's response, essentially, don't get comfortable. One soft print doesn't change the plan. If you followed Warsh at all, none of this is new. He's been using the phrase regime change at the Fed since a CNBC interview last summer, long before he had the job. On Tuesday, he said it again, on the record, as chairman. And he didn't hold back on his predecessor either, directly criticizing the 2020 average inflation targeting framework Powell introduced, calling it a mistake that cost Americans an undue tax for years longer than necessary. Here's the detail worth catching. The Fed itself already walked away from that framework during a 2025 policy review, before Warsh ever took the job. His actual complaint wasn't that nobody fixed it, it's that nobody admitted the mistake sooner. Warsh has also stood up 5 internal task forces to review different corners of Fed policy, staffed with names well outside the usual central banking circle, Mark Andreessen and Walmart CEO Doug McMillon among them. On Tuesday, he confirmed those groups are still in the research phase, but that the Fed has been shifting internally for weeks now, whether staff are fully on board yet or not. He also dropped a smaller line that tells you a lot about his priorities. He's less interested in whether inflation lands at 2.3% or 2.7% than in simply getting back below that 3% handle in the first place. Translation, and stop obsessing over the decimal, get the whole number right. So what was Tuesday really about? 3 things, if you ask me. First, independence. Warsh wanted it on the record that his views on rates and inflation were set long before this job, going back to 2008, so nobody should read future decisions as favors to the White House. Second, credibility. 5 years of above-target inflation battered the Fed's reputation, and publicly breaking with Powell is Warsh building his own hawkish credibility from day one. Third, fewer promises. He's made clear the Fed will lean on incoming data rather than forward guidance, which means markets should stop expecting the Fed to reliably ride to the rescue every time volatility spikes. On the balance sheet, no surprises. Warsh reiterated that any future changes will come with plenty of advance notice to markets. The Fed's Treasury purchases have already been tapering down for months as quantitative tightening continues, and he wants that process to stay boring and predictable, not a source of new shocks. On foreign demand for U.S. debt, the latest data shows foreign holders now own $937 trillion in Treasuries, one of the highest levels on record. And Warsh, working alongside Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, is expected to keep pushing dollar-backed stablecoins as a tool to deepen liquidity in Treasury and short-term funding markets, a bet that digital dollars end up reinforcing demand for U.S. government debt rather than competing with it. Bottom line, Tuesday effectively closed the book on the Powell era. What's opening now is a Fed more explicitly focused on inflation, more disciplined about the balance sheet, and far less interested in holding markets' hands. Underneath all of it is one goal: rebuild the dollar's credibility so the Fed can eventually run a weaker dollar policy from a position of strength, not desperation. I'm Kyle. I'll see you in the next one.